Greetings, Dr. Cannon, sir, and fellow students who may be having an opportunity to view this presentation. Today I'll be talking about female integration in combat arms. Women, since many years ago, have been really supporting the military more than a lot of people realize. Back in 1942, as depicted on the screen, we had the Women's Army Corps, and in 1943, a year later, it evolved to the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps. And women were doing jobs more in a support capacity, i.e. like nursing, logistics, supply, things of that nature, to ensure that the warfighter received everything that they needed in order to be able to sustain themselves on the battlefield. This photo right here is quite interesting. It shows that women really had the desire many years ago to want to partake in the combat arms setting. To your left, you have Deborah Sampson, who was a woman who disguised herself as a man in order to serve in the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War. She is a part of a small number of women with a documented record of military combat experience in that war. She served 17 months in the Army as Robert Shurtleff of Uxbridge, Massachusetts. She was wounded in the 1782. Wow, look at that, 1782. How long ago that was. Well, she was wounded then and honorably discharged at West Point, New York in 1783. To the right, we have Elizabeth Newcomb. Elizabeth was in the Mexican War. She dressed up as a male as well, and joined the military at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas in 1847. She battled the Native Americans in Dodge City. 10 months later, she was discharged when her gender was discovered. In July of 1848, however, Congress paid her the land and money she was owed for her service. So it just goes to show that women, even many years ago, and back to the 18th century, they had a desire to want to support and fight for their country, and went by any means necessary, even disguise themselves as men in order to fulfill that patriotic calling. So the Army was directed by Washington in June of 2013, pretty much as a warning order to, hey, get ready, because by no later than January 1st, 2016, the year we're in now, women will be allowed to apply for all military occupational specialties. They will no longer be banned. So to your left, you have the Army G1, General Bromberg, who's briefing some courses of actions on how they plan to go about with this integration. To the right, you have actually two photos of two females, Lieutenant Shay Haver and Captain Kirsten Grice. Both of those young ladies were the two first females to complete Ranger School already in this year of 2016. So the progress is being made, and the movement. Some may say change is coming, but I would argue that change is not coming. Change is here. So when the Army was given this task, it came down with this mission. Basically, what our government wants, our Department of Defense want, is for a seamless integration of female service members into the units. Prior to doing that, they're going to conduct a series of, they have conducted, because it's going on right now, a series of teachings, of education for this integration process, for awareness and how to receive the female soldiers as they begin to integrate within the ranks of traditionally all male units. The goals in this process that needed to be reached was to promote openness and differences, and be able to understand the differences, but accept that the females were going to be allowed to go ahead and join the ranks of our combat soldiers. The process will help improve decision making, and also challenge our leaders as well as soldiers, from the highest ranks to the lowest, in their ability to deal with change. And overall, look to improve individual and team relationships, and actually follow through and come to a consensus and realize, hey, we need to act on this, and we need to support what our government is calling us to do. Stigma. That was a big thing. Hey, the stigma needed to be broken. That women were only good for feminine type things, if you will. They need to stay in the support in the rear with the gear. You even have some males that feel that women doesn't need to be in the military at all. They should be at home taking care of the kids, in the house. However, Big Army sees it totally different. So Big Army is on this endeavor to create what's called the Soldier of 2020. The Department of the Army, as well as what's known as TRADOC, the Training and Doctrine Command, were tasked to do a study and figure out what it was going to take to go ahead and get females integrated into the combat arms, military occupational specialties. So I had an opportunity to go out to the field and to question, to do some interviews with some active duty soldiers as well as a retired soldier. I had two Rangers, Staff Sergeant Dale Henney, Staff Sergeant Sergio Miranda, and I also had a retired Chief Warrant Officer, Senior Maintenance Warrant Officer, that I had a chance to interview and get his take on these questions that you see here before you. And also another CW4 female, very interesting young lady, interesting experience that she brought to the table. Her name was Chief Warrant Officer 4 Raquel Patrick. Miss Patrick had the opportunity of being a part of the female engagement team on the rotation to Afghanistan, where she was tasked to engage the female population as the war fighters needed her to, in order to, as they were doing their patrols. So she was doing things like kicking in doors and doing all the stuff that the combat soldiers were doing. It was herself, along with a few other females, that was handpicked to do this job. And she said they kept up and they did really well. They did still feel some resistance from the males, that they really didn't necessarily want them there, but they were able to keep up. So, but as you see, sir, and fellow classmates, the questions that were asked were basically, what were their input? How do they feel about the integration? What's their opinion? What's some of the rumor control? What do they believe the core issues were to the female integration into the combat arms? And Rangers, the Rangers, one of the Army's most elite forces, has just recently opened up this year to, as I mentioned earlier, to females. So now females are able to go to Ranger School, and the first two female graduates, as I mentioned earlier, were First Lieutenant Shay Haver and Captain Kirsten Grice. And we have what's called a Ranger Assessment Program, RAPS 2. That's the program that the soldiers go through who want to be actually assigned to a Ranger unit. Because you can go to Ranger School and you can get the Ranger tab and become a Ranger, but to be assigned to an actual Ranger unit, you have to go through what's called RAPS 2. So these are the questions that they were asked. And the next slide shows what some of the common responses were. Concerns were females are going to get pregnant. That's why they think they shouldn't be integrated into combat arms. Sexual crimes like sexual harassment, sexual assault. Men are naturally going to care for women. You know, they're going to be distracted on the battlefield, and it's going to cause lives because they're going to want to try to save the women's lives naturally and overprotect them. Some pros were, hey, women, there's some that out there willing and able, and gender shouldn't matter. Some say that it's a step in the right direction. It's an all-volunteer army, so hey, get them opportunity regardless of what their gender is. And you wouldn't need those female engagement teams any longer, like Miss Patrick were on, because they'll be fully integrated into the combat arms MOSs. So, are women a weaker vessel? APFT, Army Physical Fitness Test. Personally, I've seen women score, as you can get 300 points total possible score, and I've seen women score 350 and above. Outdo men, run circles around men. But this chart shows you that the average male and female scores about 238, 236, and look, there's only a 2-point difference. So women can really hold their own. Maybe not all, but there are a lot of women out there that can hold their own when it comes to the physical concerns that a lot of males and a lot of females have about females joining the ranks of the combat arms. Can they keep up? Will they be able to endure? Will they last? Will their bodies hold up? And it's very well possible. Just stepping outside of the military, you have here a lady by the name of Miss Kimberly Baum. She's considered one of the strongest women in the world. And here you have her hanging out with a NFL football player. Oh, by the way, his name is Anthony Adams. I thought that was cool. And she actually, showed him some different activities that he can do to improve his agility and his strength. And he was extremely impressed with her. And, when we look at Mrs. Baum here, I'm willing to bet that she can probably outdo several combat arms active duty soldiers. Just stepping outside of the military side of the house in general, where some people say women need to stay at home. They stress, they worry, they be too distracted, they too emotional. But if you look at this chart here, the women that stay at home are the ones that are worrying the most. They're the most depressed. They're the saddest. They're the most stressed. They're the most angry. But the women that are out there in the workforce, engaged, going after their dreams and their heart desires, their percentages when it comes to these emotions are less. So that's quite interesting that it would turn out that way. And last slide, ultimately, a very consensus as far as what's going to be the big challenge is a culture change. If you look at the cartoons, it says, "Congratulations, Missy, you have survived the hazing, discrimination, sexual harassment, and rape. The Pentagon says you're cleared for combat." So, and that's kind of the truth, that folks think that, the women are going to have to get through that. And if they can get through that stigma there, then they can survive. Well, we change the culture and we realize that we look at women for who they are, that they're human beings, then there's no need for any of that to be in place. Just give them an equal opportunity and allow them to soar and allow them to be a part of our ranks, regardless of its combat arms. Well, that's it, sir, and I thank you for your time.